Good morning, everyone. Today, or good afternoon now, it's 12:01. Today is October the 11th, 2023. We're here at the Maryland Public Service Commission. We're in the 19th floor hearing room. It's a little different from what was in the announcement for this hearing. We're here for Public Service Commission case number 9684, which is the application of Rosehip Cleantech, LLC for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to construct a 4-megawatt solar photovoltaic generating facility in Somerset County, Maryland. We'll start with appearances.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. David Bugelmans, counsel for the applicant, Rosehip Cleantech, LLC. I'd also like to enter the appearance of Mr. Maxwell Cook as co-counsel for the applicant.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bugelmans and Mr. Cook. PPRP.
Good afternoon, Sandra McLemore, Assistant Attorney General Sandra McLemore, Assistant Attorney General representing the Power Plant Research Program.
Good afternoon, Ms. McLemore.
Kirk Simpkins, County Attorney for Somerset County, representing Somerset County.
Good afternoon, Mr. Simpkins.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Brock Miller on behalf of Office of People's Counsel.
Good afternoon, Mr. Miller.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. James Greger on behalf of staff.
Good afternoon. And I guess the other thing is there's 4 mics. Could counsel for the applicant kind of take one and pass it along? And if staff and OPC would share, that would be wonderful. Thank you, I appreciate it. Do we have preliminary matters?
Yes, Your Honor. The applicant has several preliminary exhibits we can mark and enter. As Your Honor knows, the applicant has accepted the conditions proposed in this case. I will add that that also includes the conditions filed last week by PPRP. But we have all our witnesses here. They're prepared for cross-examination. So I would propose we could do these initial exhibits, and then once that's done, we could start with our witnesses.
I'm fine with that.
In addition, Your Honor, we actually have a matrix of all the exhibits. That's useful. If I could approach, I'll
Yes, do the parties have that?
The parties have it as well.
Yes, please. Please approach. Thank you.
Okay, Your Honor. So just to make sure we're on the same page, I believe we have 2 exhibits already marked in evidence. The Worcester County Certificate Compliance filing and the Certificate Publication for the Pre-Hearing Conference. Just want to confirm that.
Yes, my notes reflect the same.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the first new exhibit today would be applicant exhibit number 3, which is the CPCM petition filed on October 26, 2022, consisting of 8 pages under mail log number 242802.
Applicant exhibit 3 is marked.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next is the environmental review document for this application, also filed on October 26, 2022, consisting of 90 pages, also under mail log number 242802.
Applicant exhibit 4 will be the ERD.
Thank you. Next is applicant exhibit 5. We request to mark the environmental review document appendices, also filed on October 26, 2022, consisting of 884 pages, also under mail log number 242802.
That'll be applicant exhibit 5.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next, the applicant will request to mark as applicant exhibit 6 the applicant's response to PPRP's administrative completeness review, which was filed on December 20th, 2022, consisting of 41 pages under mail log 300578.
6 is so marked.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next, the applicant would request to mark as applicant exhibit 7 the certificate of publication for the first public comment hearing in this case, filed on March 15th, 2023, consisting of 13 pages under mail log 301806.
Okay, the letter of authorization from MDE will be marked as applicant exhibit 8.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did I
7,
order?
certificate of publication for the first public comment hearing.
What? Yep,
I
okay.
just marked 7.
Okay, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Just
I'm jumping ahead.
confusing myself here. Okay, so next exhibit, applicant exhibit 9, will be the certificate of publication for the second public comment hearing, filed on June 22nd, 2023, consisting of 10 pages under mail log 303660.
9 is so marked.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next is applicant Exhibit 10. We request to mark the signed affidavit from the second public comment hearing compliance filing. It was filed on June 27th, 2023, consisting of 6 pages under mail log number 303727.
10 is so marked.
Thank you, Your Honor. And then last but not least, we request to mark as applicant Exhibit 11, the settlement status update, consisting of 1 page filed on July 13th, 2023, under mail log number 304045.
11 is marked. Are there any objections to applicants' exhibits 1 through 11? Hearing none, applicants' exhibit 1 through 11 are admitted into the administrative record.
Thank you, Your Honor. With that, we can move to our first witness.
Great.
I would like to call Mr. William McCain as the applicant's first witness.
Will you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Okay. Can you state your first and last name and spell them for the court reporter, please?
William McCain. Last name McCain is M-C-C-A-I-N.
Your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. McCain, good afternoon. Can you please spell your name and provide your business address?
Yes, William McCain, M-C-C-A-I-N, and my business address is 205 Executive Plaza, Salisbury, Maryland.
And what is your business and title?
I am the chairman founder of W.R. McCain and Associates in Salisbury, Maryland. We're a real estate valuation and consultation company.
Thank you, Mr. McCain. Do you have before you in that binder a document entitled Direct Testimony of William R. McCain, M.A.I., M.B.A., consisting of 10 pages, dated March 29th, 2023?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Your Honor, I would request to mark this document as Applicant Exhibit 12.
Applicant Exhibit 12 is marked.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. McCain, was this document prepared by you or under your supervision or control?
Yes, it was.
If I were to ask you the same questions today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
And is your testimony true and correct to the best of your ability?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Mr. McCain. With that, Your Honor, I would request to move Applicant Exhibit 12 into evidence.
Any objection? Hearing none, applicant Exhibit 12 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor, and I have no redirects of the witnesses available for cross-examination.
PPRP? I have no questions, Your Honor. County?
No questions, Your Honor.
OPC?
No questions, Your Honor.
Staff?
No questions, Your Honor.
I also have no questions for you. Actually, you know what? Have you,
Ask me something.
yeah. Did you have occasion to review some of the public comment, the written public comment that was submitted in this case?
I have seen some of those, yes.
Okay. Does anything contained in the public comment change your opinion within your testimony?
No.
Okay. That's it. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you.
Your Honor, is the witness excused?
Yes,
Okay.
you can be excused.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Next up, we will call Ms. Christina Wachowski.
Is Ms. Wachowski testifying for both for herself and Mr. Cropper?
Correct.
Okay. Good afternoon. Can you raise your right hand, please?
Certainly.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Okay. Can you please state your first and last name and the first and last name of the person that you wrote testimony with and spell them for the court reporter, please?
Christina Watkowski. That's Kristina Watkowski. And Hugh Cropper the fourth, Hughcropper, Roman numeral 4.
Your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Wachowski, what's your business address?
9927 Stephen Decatur Highway, Suite F12, Ocean City, Maryland, 21842.
And what is your business and title?
I am an associate attorney with Booth, Cropper, and Mariner.
Thank you. Do you have before you in that binder a document entitled The Joint Direct Testimony of Hugh Cropper, IV, Esquire, and Christina L. Wachowski, Esquire, consisting of 282 pages, dated March 29th, 2023?
I do, sir. And you said how many pages?
282
yes.
inclusive of exhibits.
Exhibits, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Honor, would request to mark this document as applicant Exhibit 13.
Lucky number 13 is marked.
Ms. Wachowski, was this document prepared by you or under your supervision and control?
Yes.
And if I were to ask you the same questions today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And is your testimony true and correct to the best of your ability?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Wachowski. With that, Your Honor, request to move applicant Exhibit 13 into evidence.
Any objection? Applicant 13 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor, and the witness is available for cross-examination.
PPRP?
I have no questions, Your Honor.
County?
I have a few questions, Your Honor. Ms. Kwiatkowski, on page 2, line 22, you say that you've been involved with the project since 2019, but that you were effectively forced to withdraw the special exception. Why?
That was our firm that was involved, sir, as far as the special exception. I believe it was a procedural matter.
I don't want to leave the court with the impression that the county in some way inhibited the company from getting their solar farm. So if you put that in there, it says that but was effectively forced to withdraw the special exception. Please explain that.
Your Honor, sir, that was prior to me. They were, and I got this information essentially from the firm, but they had to withdraw. I believe it was the nature of just the practice. It's actually afforded to them in the code as well. And the special exception process, I believe, was having to go through the hoops, obviously, through the state.
So you know from your involvement with the case since 2019 that the county gave the company one exception, and the company withdrew the application once and was allowed to reapply again, and 2 days before the hearing, then you canceled the hearing and withdrew. Is that right?
And withdrawal. That's, I believe so.
And I want to know what specifically the county did to force you to withdraw.
If I could review, if you don't
Sure.
mind. I apologize. There was an appendice that had the special exception information. I want to make sure I'm accurate and on point. I know that they were procedural in nature, Mr. Simpkins.
Yeah, I understand that, but
I understand.
I understand that there are always things procedural, but
Sure.
in this testimony, it looks as though you're accusing the county of forcing you to withdraw. That just wasn't the case, was it? I was there.
I was not there, so I can't say as to what that was. But my information was that the firm, as I indicated, and I was told in 2019, started with the project and then was forced to basically abandon that. But my testimony concerning the project was more specific.
Okay, and then further in your testimony that the county changed their zoning from the 2019 case
That's
to
my
what we're here
understanding.
for today. Is that right?
That's my understanding. There were some changes.
But the county's changing of their zoning ordinance regarding solar panels and solar generation was done before this case was ever filed with the Public Service Commission, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Okay. What's the reason that the applicant can't comply with the overlay zoning and the additional setbacks?
Are you referring to some of the setbacks?
Yes.
Not all of them?
Yes.
Well, when you look at the project itself, sir, in trying to maximize, it's not that it doesn't comply with any of them, sir. It just doesn't comply with some of the side setbacks. But just as anything else, nothing checks, I guess, all the boxes, so to speak. But with regard to the plan and the layout and the landscape and all the other requirements, it in part does not comply, but as a whole, taken as a whole, it's certainly permissible.
I noticed in here, I'm not sure if it's part of your testimony, but I will ask you that
Sure.
the applicant has stated that the county's landscaping requirements are excessive, onerous, and unnecessary. Do you know anything about that?
I have to object to that. That's outside the
I'll
scope
withdraw,
of
Your
her.
Honor.
Okay.
No further questions.
OPC?
No questions, Your Honor.
Staff?
No questions, Your Honor.
So I want to focus on the setbacks and vegetation management, or the buffer. Are those the only two places where you feel that the project doesn't fully comply with the county's zoning?
Yes.
Okay. I love the detail in the pre-filed testimony, but I also love the clarity and
Sure.
like plain English of live testimonies. So can you just, without reading from your testimony, can you just take us through where those failures to comply with the zoning regulations are?
Sure. So those side setbacks, I believe, are required to be 75. It includes a buffer as well. So we are at 50. Those setbacks have a purpose, and that purpose is to obviously protect what is on the other side, so to speak, from things like noise, something that is unattractive, something that might have odor, all of those things. And not every parcel can certainly have to deal. So every project, this project, for example, there are other uses for the property that would be important to have those setbacks, for example. It's a farming, agricultural area. If there were a manure farm there, if there were a chicken farm there, things of that nature. But all of the concerns that setbacks address are addressed by the vegetation, the use of panels that are low glare, for example.
What part of the border specifically is not in compliance? Would
If
not
you-
be in compliance?
If you don't mind, I just want to look at the
Yeah.
plan. I
feel free
believe
to
it's-
refer, just don't read from your testimony.
Oh,
please.
sure, sure. I'm a visual person, so sometimes looking at the photo. So, well, this is really kind of hard. It's small. Sorry.
If it helps, your testimony
Yes.
is on these subjects are on page 13 and 14 of your filed testimony.
Yes, I wasn't looking at the testimony. Sorry,
Okay.
I was looking at the ERD to kind of give you a better
Okay.
description, but I appreciate that. Only because you asked for plain English. So. Give me just a moment.
We're in no hurry. Take your time.
I'm just going to take apart this photo. So in looking at the project, the concern would be, I guess, the dwellings on the side. That's really the largest concern. Also, too, I believe it's the rear, considered the rear of the property. There is forestry and on the other side, so to speak. And so I guess your question is the purpose in those setbacks and
Yes.
why this affects that. As you can see from the ERD, Your Honor, the kind of the angle and the design to kind of maximize and best use of that space kind of brings us to comply with all of the other requirements. For example, the panels themselves and the distance between them. So the width of the panel and the distance of the panel can't exceed. So the width of the panel can't exceed the distance, for example. So to kind of make that fit, so to speak, and to have it with the layout and the design and the ERD brings you, I guess, to kind of points. And then there is a fence perimeter. There is a buffer as well, and then the vegetation. Well, I don't know if that really fully answers your question, but the concern would be, or the concern, I guess, is by Mr. Simpkins, the residence is nearby, for example. But as I indicated, the site, the sound, and anything that would be obtrusive is kind of cured by that planting and vegetation.
So I think your testimony can be summarized to say that you're substantially in compliance with the zoning.
Oh, absolutely. I don't, the comprehensive plan is a broad brush approach at zoning, and there's nothing that necessarily checks all the boxes. So zoning is more for now, comprehensive plans for the future.
Okay, and what about the landscape planting plan?
So there's vegetation to help with pollination, and then there's vegetation around the perimeter as well.
Okay, does the vegetation around the perimeter, in what ways is the plan not compliant with the county's rules regarding that?
Regarding the vegetation,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there was a request to enhance with additional trees. If you don't, give me just a moment. But looking at it as a whole, it is compliant, Your Honor. There were rows of the evergreen materials that the requirement, I guess, being it was an amendment that was adopted after, I guess, the project, so to speak, started for whatever reason. But they would still need some type of site plan approval, so that's something that could certainly be addressed.
So I suppose I can ask this of company witness Oregon, but is PPRP's condition requiring 30-foot landscape buffer that will totally screen the solar facility, be 6 foot at planting and 8 foot within 5 years? Will that comply with the county's zoning? And is that what the company intends to do?
I believe the intention is to comply.
Okay.
But I believe that that is with the site plan approval process.
I understand. The agricultural soil threshold.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, can you just summarize your testimony with regards to that?
Sure. With respect to the soil testing, that information that we received,
Yes.
so about 5 acres of the 20-acre parcel were kind of what's considered quality soil prime soil for agriculture. That really kind of limits the use of the parcel then. And those 5 acres, would have to be drained as well. So part of the comprehensive plan and part of the purpose is to obviously protect prime agricultural land and not use that as the resource and preserve that and conserve it. So in this case, that is not an issue with this parcel because only 20% of the property itself would be prime agricultural.
Should the calculation been to get to the 25% compared to the 50% county agricultural soil threshold, should that have been 5 out of the 20.13 acres, which was contained in your testimony, or should it have been 5 out of the 18 acres of tillable land?
Well, the 18 acres is what could be used for tillable. I guess I'm giving best case scenario.
I don't have any further questions.
You looked at it as a
Do you-
whole. Sorry.
Do you have any questions based off of mine?
I have no questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you for your time this morning.
I do, Your Honor. Based on your questions, I have a question. That's all right.
Okay. I'll give you another shot.
Well, it's just based on your question, Your Honor. You said that you're complying with the county zoning ordinance as far as the setbacks and so forth?
Not all of them.
Okay. So you're not complying with the 75-foot setback?
Correct.
Okay. If you're not complying with that, I don't think that's substantial compliance. Do you?
As a whole with the
Yeah.
ordinance, I think there is substantial. I think that's the part where it may not comply. But again, projects don't check every box
understand.
necessarily.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
I have no follow-up.
Thank you for your time this morning. I appreciate your
Thank
testimony.
you.
Next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. As our next witness, we would call Mr. Dane Bauer to the witness stand.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Can you please state your first and last name and spell them for the court reporter?
Dane Bauer, Danebauer.
Your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Bauer, what's your business address?
The business address is 37534 Oliver Drive, Selbyville, Delaware, 19975.
And what is your company and title?
H&B Solutions.
Thank you. Mr. Bauer, in that binder before you, do you have a document entitled Revised Direct Testimony of Dane S. Bauer and Melissa S. Hall, consisting of 22 pages, dated June 27th, 2023?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Your Honor, I would request to mark this document as Applicant Exhibit 14.
14 is marked.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Bauer, were these documents prepared by you or under your supervision or control?
Yes, they were.
And if I were to ask you the same questions today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And is your testimony true and correct to the best of your ability?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Your Honor, I would request to move Applicant Exhibit 14 into evidence at this time.
Any objection? 14 is admitted.
Thank you, and the witness is available for cross-examination.
PPRP,
I have no cross, Your Honor.
County,
No questions, Your Honor.
OPC,
No questions, Your Honor.
staff.
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Bauer, have you continued to look at the filings? Did you? I see in your revised testimony that you directed some comments to public comment that were made at the public hearings. Did you also look at the filed written public comments?
Yes.
And have you looked at those that have been filed after your revised direct was filed?
I don't know that I have.
Okay.
I may have.
Were you able to see PPRP's supplemental testimony and revised conditions that were filed
Yes.
on October 6th?
Yes.
Okay. And does the company accept the revised recommended license conditions of PPRP?
Yes. After discussion with the client, yes.
There continue to be comments received by the commission from the public regarding the number of homes nearby the site. Seems to me that the number of homes in a specific area shouldn't be something that all parties should be able to agree on. They're there, right? So what are your sources for your testimony regarding the number of homes located near the site?
Well, initially, the engineer for the project, Davis, Bone, and Friedel, did a screening of the homes in the immediate area using Google. And it was amended afterwards because we found out that it didn't show all the residences because of the tree cover. So when they cross-referenced it with Merlin, the database from state planning, and SStat, they found that there were 6 additional houses that needed to be added within a half-a-mile radius. And then we were asked to compare that with all the other projects that we work on for different clients that need a CPCN license. And I think over the last 8 years, we do like 90% of these projects. So we had a good base to compare the number of houses in this situation versus many of the other projects we've worked on. And we offered an opinion in our testimony that this is not untoward, that having 32 houses within a half a mile is actually less than some of the other projects that we've worked on the Eastern Shore. In particular, we worked on Great Bay, and we worked on Costin, and we worked on the project right outside of Ocean City. And all of them have similar or greater number of houses within a half a mile.
Have you visited any of those projects 5 years or 10 years after they were constructed?
Great Bay, well, I don't think they've been in the ground 5 years. Neither one of the projects I've referenced have been in the ground.
Have you
5
had occasion to visit any property, any solar installment 5 or 10 years after they were installed?
I think the first project we worked on, which was in Wicomico County, we have seen after that. And I believe we did one in Cambridge, not in Cambridge, in Dorchester County very early on that was built. And we have seen others that have been built that we weren't associated with, like the Purdue solar project in Salisbury and the one on 404 that we did not work on. So we've seen maybe 5 or 6 projects that have been built over a 5-year period.
Are you aware that there have been failures in the vegetative buffer in several of the projects?
However, failures defined, I would say...
Dead trees?
Yes.
Like all of the trees dead?
Or I would define it a little differently. It's not that the plants have died so much, is that early on, 8 or 9 years ago when we were first starting this along with all the other developer consultants, they weren't requiring as robust a screening. So the Salisbury project for Purdue, you can ride by, there's no screening whatsoever. The one on 404 that everybody sees and talks about, there were small trees planted that haven't grown in yet, so you can still see the panels. And I believe the one that I referenced that we did work on in Dorchester County, the plants were, I would say now, very insufficient. And I think the owners actually replaced them. So I would say 8 years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago, the county nor the state was requiring the same level of buffering that they are now. And I think that's the reason that we see things that look like failed buffers.
PPRP revises its conditions that it's recommending fairly often. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. There's a condition that PPRP is proposing in this case. Let me look at my notes for a second. PPRP 31, which is complaint resolution. And it requires Rosehip to develop a process to evaluate, document, and address complaints. I suspect that a good number of the complaints that will be received will be about screening. So have you been a part of the process with coming up with a complaint resolution process?
No, we haven't been asked to do that. We understand the condition because we've seen it in other
Yes.
licensing cases.
a moment, please. Does the company intend to put in an 8-megawatt battery storage system?
At this time, it's an option.
What does that mean?
Well, that question may not be for me, but we understand it's been included in this application because it's the intention. But I presume it has to do with the changing technology and the cost and the profit loss associated with whether or not they add that or not.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. Council, do you have any questions?
I have a few follow-up questions.
Go ahead.
Mr. Bowery, are you familiar with PPRP condition 27? You could pull it up in your binder too if you need to.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Did I hear you correct? You said that you've visited the Great Bay project site in Somerset County?
Yes.
So you're generally familiar with the landscape screening for that project?
Yes.
I mean, in general, are you able to describe how does condition 27 compare to what was done at Great Bay?
This is much more robust than some of those projects we worked on earlier with the county.
And condition 28.
Yes.
Are you familiar, and also condition 29, are you familiar of any similar requirements for the projects that were referenced by Judge Grace with
Yes.
respect to maintenance agreements and surety agreements?
Yes.
And what would be the effect of these conditions in terms of if the screening that's planted doesn't survive?
They would have to be replaced and refurbished.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. You can
Thank
be
you.
excused.
I have some questions, Your Honor.
Okay, usually we don't allow questions after I ask my questions, except for whoever party's witness it is, but you can go ahead.
When you did your report, who did you consult with at the county, Somerset County?
Mr. Redden
Okay.
and the lady in the planning office whose name I can't think of right now. I'm sorry.
Was that done for this project or the prior project?
It was done for this one. We weren't involved when the project was going through the county for special exception. We hadn't been engaged yet.
Okay.
Only when they decided to get a CPCN license were we engaged.
Okay. How many times did you talk to people at the county about it?
Several times. I know John Redden. I worked with him in Wicomico County, and we sought his guidance. And also your planning office. We knew Mr. Pusey very well, and we had worked with his staff before. So we called when we were first engaged just to advise them that we would be working on the county and the project, and asked them if they were familiar with it. They told us that they were. They gave us a general status of where the project was at that time. We talked to them about stormwater,
Yes.
about grades, and we had a concept that I guess was put before John, and he told us if we stayed the course, it would probably be the right kind of stormwater. There were general questions like that. We also, then we submitted the draft ERD to the county, and we had a call with them, and I don't know who else was on the call with us. I don't know if you were on the call or not.
No,
And
I wasn't.
we went over their general comments about the draft ERD, and those are the types of conversations that we had with them.
Okay. And as a result of their questions about it, did you modify your plans?
I think we addressed all of their comments, especially in regards to where the status was relative to how the project conformed with the local ordinance. They had indicated it didn't conform, and we recited that in our document. Those are the kinds of comments that we addressed.
I'm just trying to figure out, as a result of your communication with them, you didn't really change anything, did you?
I don't believe there was anything to change because 90% of our document is environmental regulatory. There's only a small part that deals with zoning and compliance with the comprehensive plan.
Well, you know that you're supposed to give due consideration to counties' objections to things, correct?
Objection. It's a legal question. Due consideration.
I'll allow it.
You do know that. You're supposed to.
I believe we did.
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out. What did you change from your original after you talked to the county?
Well, we had input from the applicant and Hugh Cropper's office on what the status was of the project relative to the comp plan and conformance with the zoning. And I believe they filled in some blanks that we wouldn't have known otherwise. So I believe the way that we represented the conformance with the comp plan and the ordinance was consistent with the input that we got from them.
Okay, that's all I have.
Do you recall, as a result of those meetings, whether the project made changes specifically to the setbacks at the site that were proposed in the application?
We have subsequently made changes.
And was that in response to feedback from the county?
Well, that and the Department of Agriculture and SCD regarding the tax ditch in particular.
Are you aware of how these setbacks compare to what was initially proposed to the county as part of the special exception process?
Objection, Your Honor. That's really got nothing to do with what's going on here.
It's clearly on topic. He was asking the witness about changes made to the project to address the county's concerns, and I think changes that were possibly made from the special exception application to what's before the commission today are they're clearly in line and building off of his questions.
Overruled. Go ahead.
I think from an engineering standpoint, I'm partly engineering. When you talk about a 75-foot setback, that 75-foot setback is for a purpose. And the purpose is somewhat offset, again, from an engineering standpoint, when you put a 30-foot buffer that's going to be 15 feet tall in 5 years. So I would say on the record that if you have a 50-foot setback with a 30-foot buffer that's going to be 15 foot high and it's designed to be opaque, that's equivalent to a 75-foot setback. That would be my comment. And I would say that's how it's been addressed through the process.
But how does that compare to what was proposed initially as part of the special exception that was submitted to the application that was submitted to the county?
I believe these are greater setbacks now than when the application was first submitted by Mr. Cropper.
Great. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Mr. Bauer, what are all the reasons for setbacks?
Well, for these in general,
For this type of project?
for this type of project, there's a variety of reasons.
Can you list some? Many as you can?
The first one is just visibility.
Okay.
Most people don't want to see these things across the street. So you want to put a buffer in so that you don't even notice that there's a solar project there. So you wouldn't notice it from a visibility standpoint. And the other reason for a setback has to do with sound. The state law for sound is, I think during the day, it's 65 decibels. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. And if you look at this equipment, that's used for these projects, the only thing that makes sounds are the inverters and the electrical motors. And I think at 3 meters, they make sound that's about 60 to 70 decibels. Well, sound dissipates with every doubling of the distance that the sound was set for. So if it was set at 3 meters at 70, if you're at 6 meters, it's 6 decibels less. If you're at 12 decibels, it's 6 decibels less than that. The closest property in this case, I think, was 440 feet. If you run the math, this is not a sound issue, but with regard to your question, having a 30-foot buffer of trees and plants and having it be opaque, it also lowers the sound that you're going to hear on the other side. And that same holds true for glare. They did a very sophisticated glare analysis, but when you put the buffer up, you have even greater protection from the glare. Those are the 3 key things: visibility, sound, and the glare. And the buffer, in addition to the distance that you're set back, adds an additional attenuation of those items.
Thank you. Mr. Bugelmans, any questions?
I have no questions.
Thank you for your testimony. You can be excused. Next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. As our next witness, we will call Mr. Sammy Ayurgan.
Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you state your first and last name and spell them for the court reporter, please?
Sure. Sami Ayurgan, S-A-M-I, first name. Last name is A-Y-Y-O-R-G-U-N.
Your witness, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Ayurgan, can you please provide your business address?
4000 Legato Road, Fairfax, VA 22033.
And what is your business and title?
I'm the manager of Flonium, and my business is developing these renewable energy projects.
Thank you. Do you have before you in that binder a document entitled The Direct Testimony of Sammy Ayurgan, PhD EE, consisting of 12 pages, dated March 29th, 2023?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would request to mark this document as Applicant Exhibit 15.
15 is marked.
Mr. Ayurgan, was this document prepared by you or under your supervision and control?
Yes,
And if I were to ask you these same questions today, would your answers be the same?
absolutely.
And is your testimony true and correct to the best of your ability?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Ayurgan. With that, Your Honor, I'd request to move Applicant Exhibit 15 into evidence.
Any objection? 15 is admitted.
Thank you. I have no redirect, and the witness is available for cross-examination.
PPRP,
No questions, Your Honor.
county.
Yes. Mr. O'Gorman, in your testimony on page 5, line 4, you say that you were targeted and denied a reasonable opportunity to respond and thus forced to withdraw your special exception application with the county. Please explain to me how you were targeted.
Yes. We have been in touch with the county since late 2018 and started in 2019. The council, the law firm of Hugh Cropper, engaged the county, multiple attorneys, and they're very well versed in project development, land use applications, special exceptions, variances, and so forth. Very well established, well-known company. They have quite a bit of experience in low risk insurance in particular. We have submitted the SE application. The attorneys have submitted, prepared, with the set of consultants. We have had multiple in-person discussions, email correspondences with the county, and we had TAC meetings, staff reports. We had the hearings, a lot of correspondence with the county. We have made it very clear to county that we accept the staff recommended conditions. We have revised the project a number of times. The project did not start with the landscape buffer. Project complied with the setbacks established by the county upon recommendation from the county, and on the public comments, we did include landscape buffer. Upon further hearing, we have increased the quality of the landscape buffer. We have requested on the second public hearing, we have requested further follow-up to further increase the landscape buffer, which Hugh Cropper has submitted those. And the Board of Zoning Appeals, BZA, decided not to make a decision on this project on the second hearing. You were there, I assume, at that time.
I was.
Yes. They decided we have met all the conditions, we have met all the requirements as presented and as submitted by the testimonies on the hearing. And to further satisfy, I guess we had already satisfied, but to further improve the landscape buffer, Hugh Cropper asked for a time to submit further information of the enhanced landscape. And the record was closed. He made it very clear. The record was closed. The only thing that was open was for the attorney to submit those further landscape information, which we did. And then on a few days before the hearing, he had, Hugh Cropper is involved in a lot of nonprofit activities. And in fact, at that time, at that very day, he had a fundraising activity for the hospital in Somerset County. He asked for a few days of postponement, multiple discussions with the county. The county vehemently rejected. He submitted a couple of letters as to why this is not the case, that he's not giving that flexibility. And then I was told that, this is not normal given their experience in Lower Eastern Shore. This is absolutely out of the ordinary. And it is my firm opinion that I've been targeted. In July 2019, there was another solar project submitted for special exception. I assume you know that, Bright Spot, LLC. And it was granted SE on July 16, 2019. Same time, pretty much identical conditions. They accepted their licensing conditions, their SE conditions. Mine was not even decided on. I think there was a discussion during the SE hearing that, interestingly, they said, why don't we actually floor this? Why don't we table this until the new code is adopted, and then we're going to apply the new code? There was this discussion in person, in the room, on the BZA, and you know that, that's under the record. So if this is not targeting, what is targeting? I don't know the definition of targeting. I have been, my counsel has been not given customary. He's not asking months of delay. He was just asking, give me a day or two, because I'm raising capital for the hospital in Somerset County. And coincidentally, another solar project, small-scale solar project, is granted the SE at a lightning speed by the county, versus this project has been working on since 2018 December, and they couldn't even make a decision, even if I increase the landscape buffer, even if I keep increasing it, even if I modify everything they say, even if I accept everything. There's not one condition we said we do not accept. The only thing we just said that we do not accept is, if you plant these trees before the construction starts, they're going to die. Just give, we will plant it after the construction is completed, and that's a regular practice in the industry. You never see landscape buffer put and then being ruined by the truckings and ruined by the construction. That's the only variance that we ask, which is very reasonable that you ask anybody off the street. They don't even have to be expert in the field. So then if this is not targeting, I don't know what is targeting. And I vividly remember, I hate to say this, but I have to say it. I'm a U.S. citizen. I felt a lot of discrimination in that room multiple times. Even somebody said, when are you going back to Turkey? If this is not targeting, somebody has to tell me what is targeting. My kids are born and raised here. We hired professional engineers, professional companies to do everything they could do above and beyond what's being asked. And the county couldn't even decide on the SE application.
Well, they could have decided if you'd gone to the hearing. You withdrew your application before the county ever got to make a decision on it. Isn't that correct?
My counsel couldn't go, and I didn't want to go
But
without my counsel.
that's not what I'm asking you. You withdrew it before they ever had a chance to adopt it. They could have adopted it. You had complied with everything. The Planning and Zoning Commission had agreed to everything that you wanted to do. So why not go to the hearing?
I mean, it's calling for speculation. What the BZA would do.
It's also been asked and answered. You can go on to your next question, Council.
Yes. Okay. All right. You say that the more stringent regulations would be unreasonable and burdensome and discriminatory. How would they be discriminatory or burdensome to you if you had to comply with the zoning ordinance in Somerset County?
Compared to, so this question, let me make sure that I understand your question correctly. So there were conditions, recommended conditions by the staff of the county for SE granting of the SE. There were those conditions on the staff report.
Yes.
And then there are conditions that the county adopted after those are published and made available to be accepted on the new zoning ordinance, right? So are you asking that the stringent requirements are onerous compared to the SE, or stringent requirements are onerous? Are you referring to the exact same question here, or you're asking a different question?
No, I'm asking a question now from what your report says, that these new requirements, the overlay and the additional buffers and having the battery storage facility within 600 feet, I believe I read in here, was going to be unreasonable, burdensome, discriminatory.
Which page you're referring to, Mr.
I don't know which page it was now. It's not in your testimony here, but it's in the application.
Are you asking a question about my testimony, or are you asking something else?
Well, this was made for you, correct?
I understand.
Yeah,
I just
I'm
want to make sure that I
asking
answer your question correctly to answer
I'm not
precisely.
asking you from your testimony. I'm asking you something, a general question.
I guess I would object if council wants to ask questions that are actually directed at the witness's testimony with specific pages and lines. That's appropriate, but he's asking him about pages from the petition, which is not his testimony.
I'm going to overrule the objection. Council can ask questions about the ERD and the petition, but I'm going to ask for a page reference so we can all follow.
Okay.
That was my intent, just to make sure that I understand your question precisely.
Yes, on page 31 of the ERD,
Thank you, Council.
at the top of the page, what it says is, considering the above, the county's additional landscaping requirements are excessive, onerous, and unnecessary for the project.
Hold on. Okay, so that is in reference to the comp plan and zoning discussions that's been presented on that
Yes.
section. Now I understand your question. All right, so there are just a few points. There's just a few places where the revised, yet again revised project does not fully comply. One of them is the 75-foot setback all around the project. As pointed out earlier, there are, tangible reasons as to why those setbacks exist. It is our opinion, professionally, that those setbacks actually satisfy the landscape buffer requirements. Those setbacks satisfy the sound nuisance. Those setbacks satisfy anything that is really tangibly needed by the project to satisfy. Therefore, anything more than that is really unnecessary and not substantiated. And the difference is actually not a lot. To answer or to provide an input to you is there was a revision done even after the draft ERD is submitted to county. We increased the site setbacks, just as an example, to revisions done after the draft ERD, this particular draft ERD submitted to county, to 50 foot on the sides. We have increased the front setback to 75 foot. That's another increase that we did. It was actually originally 50 foot setback on the front as well. We have also increased the landscape requirements, meeting the county's new and further enhanced landscape requirement. By the way, I would like to make a comment. Once this project is started, the CPCN process has started in 21, the summer of 21. Coincidentally, just a couple of months after that, the landscape buffer requirements again changed, amended under the new zoning ordinance. I'm under the impression that, again, that's for this particular project. I'm not aware of any other project that actually has submitted projects to the county at that time. So to answer your questions, it is onerous because it's unnecessary and capricious, to be honest. Some of those requirements, especially, and I'm still under the impression that it's still targeting this particular project. They did not leave the new zoning ordinances landscape requirement as is. As soon as we started the site works, a couple of months later, the county increased the zoning requirement, landscape requirement under the new zoning ordinance as an amendment. But we satisfy those also. We satisfy those.
But you would agree with me that these zoning ordinances have been done by the county affect every solar farm that's going to put in an application, not just this one.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, so why do you think that's targeting you?
Because there wasn't any other at that time. I was the only active applicant during that time when the amendment has been made. In fact, I remember I attended the county meetings for the zoning discussions. There was public comment that came. I can even give you the names as to who made those public comments to increase the landscape buffer to as it is right now, three row. The county denied it. They didn't adopt those comments. They did not increase. They had a chance to increase the landscape buffer requirements at the time when they were adopting the new zoning ordinance. They chose not to. The county did not adopt it when it was admitted. Coincidentally, when we started doing the project, just a few months later, it's amended. But we accept those. We are complying with those requirements, Mr. Simpkins.
I understand. It just seems like to me that you think somebody's after you when everybody else is going to have to do the same things that you do.
Mr. Simpkins, I was told very clearly.
I'm going to ask everybody to pause for a second. Mr. Simpkins, did you have a question?
Yeah. Regarding the battery storage system that you're going to put in, the 600, I think you were asking for a waiver of the 600 foot from the 600 feet from the border line or from the line to put the battery storage system if you put it in?
That is not for battery storage. That's for any power system equipment.
Yes.
Including transformers, inverters, all of that.
Well, why are you asking for an exemption?
This was answered in PPRP's data request. I can't find exactly which one, and that was one of the questions that we answered in DR. I can find that DR number. It is practically not possible. That is, if I were to summarize in in one sentence. But it's detailed and reasoned and technically backed up as to why it is impractical in one of the data requests that was submitted. Okay, I think I found it.
Mr. Aorgan, when you find it, please identify
I will do
what
that,
it
Your Honor.
is and then pause, because I'm going to ask counsel if it's attached to any testimony or in the record.
Okay. So that was on PPRP DR 46.
Okay, pause for a moment, please. I know that some PPRP testimony attached DRs, and I can't recall if that was attached to
Yeah.
any of the company's testimony.
According to what I'm looking at, it is included as one of the appendices to PPRP's PAR. Obviously, I'm not going to control what they enter into evidence, but
That's
I
fine.
think it may be.
That's fine. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Before I answer that, I also would like to interject further input to one of your questions as to why this is onerous, is because this project is not new to county at all by any measure. This project has been discussed with the county multiple times. We have conducted public hearings multiple times under the SE process. It has also been done under the CPCM process. Therefore, doing anything further is beyond onerous, in my opinion. That's in addition to the setbacks, which we do comply, majority of it. I do not want this project to be delayed. Honestly speaking, I could argue if I want to, from a technical standpoint, why some of these things are still onerous, but I just want to move on with the project. All right. So PPRP DR6 explains as to why 600-foot setback for the power system equipments are onerous. So the reason for, and one could read that, I'm not going to bore the court and everybody's time here with lengthy explanation. 600-foot setback primarily stems from, I would assume, could be from noise emissions or electromagnetic emissions, because those equipment are not taller than the solar panels themselves. Therefore, it's not like there's a height difference. It's not like they're 20 foot high. A transformer is not taller than 9 foot tall for this type of an application. So I assume site visibility is not the issue. It could be, if I were to think reasonably as an engineer, it could be noise emissions and electromagnetic radiation. On the noise, as it is, these equipment are not audible at the buildings, the neighboring buildings, as it is, as currently planned. Therefore, there is no reason for it to be 600 feet further setbacks from the road or other. Emissions-wise, these are very low-frequency equipment. They're not your telecommunication equipment. These are 60 hertz equipment, In fact, the panels themselves do not radiate anything as far as emissions go, practically speaking. Transformers are 60 hertz, and that's your, whether it's your distribution transformer for a chicken house or for this, there's no difference. There's still the same equipment in principle. The size is different. So, and it's been noted that those are also no concern. There is no reasonable emissions compared to 440 feet that the nearest residence has. So those are technical from the perspective of the neighboring properties. And the other one is the practicality, which is the fencing and the access to these equipment. Utility that is that's hosting the facility needs to access those equipment. We give that right to them as part of the interconnection agreement. Their equipment needs to be able to access through gravel roads, is not subject to just chop tank. It's true for downloadable power. So that is going to significantly alter the layout of the project, which is going to further reduce its generation capacity. In addition to increasing the setbacks compared to what SE requirements were. Remember, in SE, it was 25 feet on the sides, 30 feet on the back, 50 feet on the front. We essentially tripled that. So size right now, on both sides. So 50 feet on the sides right now, 75 feet on the front, 30 feet remains as is on the back. We've increased the setback for the tech stage also. So those already pressure down the generation capacity. This is going to butcher the project, if I were to say in layman terms, in terms of changing the layout. It has also increased the cost of the project because the linear foot of the driveways will increase. In terms of safety and emergency vehicle access, that's going to be more troublesome for the emergency vehicle. You do not see, you actually want power system equipment to be easily accessible to emergency equipment, emergency vehicles, emergency staff. You do not want to hide them in the back of somewhere further down that there's no like if you were to hose it, it's much better it's closer to the West Post Office Road rather than in the back on the woods. 600-foot setback will also limit project's electrical design options as discussed here as to why that's the case. And later on, it's discussed in this response to PPRP 46 is that the emission requirements are already met subject to the Maryland Code. Those are the reasons. Further can be, followed through the response that we submitted.
So in essence, the reason that you can't do the 600 feet is because you'll have less admissions and it'll cost more.
No, that's part of it. We would like to ensure that power system equipment are easily accessible to utility. That's a very serious concern for us. It's easily accessible to maintenance crew, easily accessible to emergency people. Those are also substantial discussions. And the other reason is actually reasonable design of the project. I mean, if I had, more land for this project, I could have increased the setbacks and put the fence, and then what would still put the equipment closer to the access point. But I don't have that land. This is a fairly land-limited site. I did try to expand the site to a neighboring property north. I worked on it for 6 months, and as soon as they learned that I am that guy in the neighborhood who's trying to do the project, they said no. They were willing to sell the property, but that didn't happen.
Well, in regard to the bus project, have you contacted the local fire department to see if they have requisite equipment and so forth to stem any fire that may happen there?
Which part of the facility you're asking, Mr. Simkins?
Any parts of it. Have you contacted the fire department on anything?
I will answer that question.
Yes.
So the emergency staff of the county came to TAC meeting, I believe twice, during the SE process. They asked the following questions to us. They said, do you have any moving parts, single axis trackers, for instance, right? Because they can cause some drips and they can cause some fires. Not that it has happened, but I said, no, there isn't. And the other thing that they asked to me is, what is the width of your inter-row spacings, and then the driveway, as well as accessing on the sides of the facility. And I was told that that should be minimum 10 feet. I recall it maybe 12, but in that range. But we have 15-foot inter-row spacing. Our driveway is, I assume, now entrance is 30 foot, but I don't know the gravel. I believe the gravel is comparable to what they require. So we met all the requirements that they asked at the TAC meetings during the SE process, Mr. Simpkins.
Was the, as you know, I'm sure the local fire company is a volunteer fire company. Were they included in any of this?
I believe it's the fire department, not the volunteer fire department, but there was, I assume.
Well, there is nothing other than the volunteer fire.
There was as an emergency staff in the TAC meeting organized by the county, Mr. Pusey and Ms. Tremblay.
That's all the questions I have. Your
I will continue answering your question.
Go ahead.
So as far as the solar facility goes, without the battery storage, I'm not aware of any fire because those things are pretty innate and passive devices, the panels themselves. The battery equipments, which is an optional, I kept saying that this is optional for the project. There are fire instances for battery storage. But one has to keep in mind the following. Battery technology is not a technology that is just one kind. It's almost similar to your cell phone. So you can get various different products in it. It looks cell phone, it's the same, but it's a different product, really. The chemistry of the battery is different in it. Or electric cars. Some electric cars use one chemistry of cell, the others use a different chemistry. Like, I don't know any Toyota Prius catch on fire because they use a totally different battery chemistry. Nickel metal hydride is what they use in Prius, which has been on the roads for more than 20 years. We are committed 100% to choose the safest chemistry for these products. One of the safest chemistries is LFP batteries. They are not as dense as some other chemistries in terms of their kilowatt hour that they can store in the same volume. So the fire instances that you see, one needs to obviously dig into what type of chemistry that they have seen. There could be multiple reasons. We are going to purchase, if we decide to install energy storage, only standard compliant equipment, commercially available equipment. In fact, let me ask that list here, because we answered that question also.
Yes, I read it.
Allow me to find it.
I believe there were 3 or 4 companies that you were
Say again?
looking at. I believe there were 3 or 4 companies that you were looking at.
Give me 1 second, Mr. Simpkins. Yes. All right. So now I address your question about fire safety regarding the solar components. And I'm not aware of any project the solar panel catch on fire. They are very innate. They're like mirrors. They have silicon wafer on it. They pretty much have nothing to catch on fire. Unless there's another fire somewhere else, they can obviously even, they can catch on fire if there's a fire somewhere else. But they do not initiate, they do not ignite the fire. Now I'm going to focus on the BAS, which I believe is a legitimate question on fire, risk for battery storage. We address that in the following way. First off, the equipment will be we're going to comply with CPCN requirements, just like we said that we will comply with SE all the time. We'll comply with the requirements as commercially available. I have to underline this. We're not going to invent devices that are not commercially available. Secondly, we are committed to procure only commercially available, standard complying, warranted, quality controlled equipment. We're trying to generate revenue out of these facilities, so we're not going to just put there some random equipment. That's number two. Number three, we are committed to procure commercially available professional services for construction. I'm not going to do it myself. Bonded and insured, commercially available product and services for building them. Number four, we're going to procure commercially available professional services for operating and maintaining them. Number fifth, we're going to have regular O&M checkups, inspections. Not just for safety, it's also for operation. These projects do need to create revenue to pay for it. And lastly, we're not going to choose a chemistry that is risky, that is both for the interest of the public, but it's also interest for the facility. If the project catches fire, I'm in trouble. I will do everything I can to make sure, and I'm a very knowledgeable guy. I have a PhD in electrical engineering obtained from UC San Diego in 2001. I served Los Alamos National Lab as a scientist for 6 years. I joined a very competitive, selective government research organization that's producing high-tech technology for U.S. government, for the most part. So I'm very knowledgeable in these things. I'm not going to, leave it to somebody else to risk the project. We will be turning every page on it. I will read pretty much everything on it, on these devices that we're going to procure and select. LFP batteries, I would strongly suggest the candidate look into LFP batteries. That's a very good chemistry. You can ask any expert of me. You can hire a battery expert, and they'll tell you LFP batteries are really one of the safest. In fact, even Tesla is now migrating towards LFP batteries because nobody likes their equipment to catch fire. The fires that you see are typically NMC batteries, nickel, manganese, cobalt batteries, which are much more powerful, much more dense. Sometimes cell phones also use those batteries. You don't see LFP battery in cell phones because they're not small in size, Mr. Simpkins. So that answers your question on the battery storage part, which is optional. I can also answer as to why we think we are considering battery storage, but that wasn't your question. But
No, that's not my question. I understand why you're considering battery storage. I'm sure it's going to make you more money, but
it is not just.
That's not a question I'm asking.
It's actually not going to make me more money. I was expecting that question, but in the interest of everybody in the room and in public, maybe I should ask this question to myself and answer.
I'll ask it then, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to make more money in it. Why would you do it?
So battery, the cost of battery is decreasing, Mr. Simpkins, but not as much as, so these equipment, if I were to plot it, the cost when the market matures kind of levels down. It has leveled down for the most part for solar panels. It can squeeze more once new innovations and technology comes into play. But the market is comfortable with the cost of solar panels themselves. The racking is also pretty much matured. So even though it's a very young industry compared to gas generators, but practically speaking, it is mature. Market has accepted that. There are gigawatts of installation. In fact, almost all new generation facility put in the market that supports our electric grid today is renewables, either solar or wind. People are not building new coal plants. In fact, they're retiring them, even though that's a much more mature technology. So battery hasn't caught up that yet. That's one reason as to why they are not creating as much value, because they're expensive to put. One reason that's optional is we're going to wait for a time when the pricing makes sense. That's on the economic side. But I'm a business person, not only an engineer. I'm trying to obviously create a facility that is financially meaningful. just like a chicken farmer is going to put their houses for financially reasonable planning. Put that aside. But the primary reason on the technical side is these solar projects, wind projects, all of them are very intermittent in their generation. What we call in the market is called firming. Somebody needs to firm it up, how you are injecting power to the grid. When you turn your printer at home, does your light get browning a little bit? Probably it does, because there's this sudden draw of current from the circuit. So from the perspective of the utility, and in fact from the perspective of operating this facility, it is better if you have a bit more controllable asset. That is the technical reason why we want to put energy storage, that we would like to have a bit more control over this generation facility. But obviously it's subject to price availability, right? So it's expensive, it's getting down. It's actually significantly, it's rapidly getting down in terms of pricing. So by the time we are going to start construction, there's a chance we'll look at very seriously, does this make financial sense? If it does, yes, we will put. If it does make financial sense. If you ask me this question, does it make right now? Questionable. We don't know. The prices are sometimes high, sometimes low. You know, future will tell. God forbid, we had a terrible incident this past weekend. You know, the financial markets changed because of that incident in Israel. You know, terrible incidents. We don't know what will happen in 1 year. Do we have anything in the East Asia, some sort of a conflict that increases the solar panel prices? You know, it's all about financial viability. But on the technical front, it is for the benefit of the county to have storage project there.
Well, the only reason I ask about the fire and the storage capacity is because they had a fire in New York last year.
I'm going to have to object to this. I mean, this isn't a conversation. This is cross-examination. He's been going back and forth.
Sustained. Do you have another question?
No. No further
further
questions.
questions?
No.
OPC?
No questions, Your Honor.
Staff?
No questions, Your Honor.
Can you turn to page 5 of your testimony, please?
Sure, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
At lines 7 through 10, you state that the applicant had accepted the 13 suggestion conditions for SE approval. I know this is not the SE process, but what were those 13 conditions?
They were a subset of the conditions that included in the CPCN conditions, Your Honor. I have not printed them here, but I will try to recollect my memory.
That'd be great.
They did not object to setbacks, Your Honor, because setbacks was recommended by them. 50 feet on the front, 25 on the sides, 30 on the back. They wanted to have one row of landscape, only on the visible portion of the project, which is a portion of the sides and the front. We accepted those. The only thing that we did not accept, Your Honor, was that it is not practical to install those landscape before the construction starts.
I understand that. What were some of the other 13?
They asked for a decommissioning plan. We accepted that. We asked for a surety bond. We accepted that. Let me recall in order of importance in my mind. I believe there was also something about road damage, if I'm not mistaken. It is printed. In fact, I have it in front of me, Your Honor. May I turn that page?
Sure.
Okay, Your Honor, I found it. So number 1 was site plan approval. Before the start of construction, site plan will be submitted to Planning Commission. A detailed landscape plan indicating type, number, size, time of planting.
Mr. Organ, are you reading from something that's in evidence?
I think this is part of our ERD submission as an attachment to Your Honor.
And can you give me a title and a page reference?
Yes, Your Honor. give me 1 second. That is Appendix 1 on draft ERD, Your Honor. Appendix 1 on draft ERD attachment, which is a first attachment. And on that one, there's no page number, but I can count the pages.
It's okay. It's okay.
May I continue with those conditions if you like, Your Honor?
You know, now I know where that list is. I can cancel that question. You may not know the answer to this because I don't think you knew the answer to Mr. Simpkins' question. Has the company been in contact with, what fire companies has the company been in contact with?
In terms of emergency services,
Yes.
government, they came to a technical advisory committee meeting with the county. I assumed, I was under the impression that they are semi-governmental agency of or body of the county or an affiliate or a nonprofit, but I don't know the exact title. They,
Do you know if the company has been in contact with the Princess Anne Volunteer Fire Company?
directly,
Yes.
we did not.
How about the Allen Volunteer Fire Company?
We did not. I don't recall.
The Fruitland Fire Company?
I do not recall that we reached out to those.
Okay.
But I'd like to make a comment
No, sir.
related to that one, Your Honor.
No, sir. There has been differing testimony and also public comment on roads, the roads being used. That the roads, the route being, having been chosen by the company doesn't allow trucks with 2 axles, or the route is overburdened with trucks to and from the chicken farms. So what is the company's position on, how did the company decide the routes that it was going to use for construction, and what is the company's position on that?
So, Your Honor, public services and in the road division of the county came to those meetings. Those comments were not raised to us by the county at all. County staff themselves.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the county. Have you read, there have been, I don't know, probably close to 40
I read Your
public
Honor.
comments?
I read Your Honor.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just trying to answer that. So I'm under the opinion that those comments are not shared by the county because that is not shared to us. But those are public comments you're referring to, Your Honor. Am I?
I'm asking for myself.
Oh, sure, for yourself. My opinion is that those roads are regularly used by similar trucks that carries big wheelers for the chicken farms. The 2-axle trucks are, because there are a lot of chicken farms in that area.
Okay, how did the company develop the route that it's chosen?
We developed 2 options in our ERD that has the least disturbance to the community. One is on the back road, the other is through the shortest possible route from Highway 13.
Okay, the company is in agreement with PPRP's revised conditions, correct?
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
Okay. As a part of condition 37, decommissioning, there's a mention of recycling of panels. What is the company's position on recycling of panels? Does it intend to recycle panels? You know, there's a condition in there about costs.
That remains to be determined, Your Honor. We will know at the time when we are getting the decommissioning plan in place and submit to PSC for review. But we will consider all available options, Your Honor.
Okay. In your opinion, do the conditions require that the land under the panels be leveled so that there's no puddles of standing water that could breed mosquitoes?
It's already level, Your Honor. It's a flat field. You're talking about further grading of the site?
After the panels would be put in?
Not any more than the breeding ground for textich that's a standing water or running water. nothing more different than the land as it is, or the ag ditch on the north. But there could be, it's not going to be gravelled or it's not going to be graded further than needed for the best practices, Your Honor.
You've seen PPRP's advised condition, I think it's 7, about
Fire safety, Your Honor?
about the battery energy storage requirements for a filing with the commission.
Yes, Your Honor, I've seen it.
Okay. So you understand that if you did decide to put in battery storage, there would be further permission required,
Yes,
correct?
Your Honor. We will submit commercially available products and requirements at the time that we decide and do the planning for the storage.
Just bear with me a second. I'm making sure I covered
That's
all my
okay.
questions.
I'm a little bit cautious because when I stop, it feels like you do not want me to say more, so, because I was going to continue. I was looking at it, so I don't want to offend you in any way.
No
so
worries.
I just stopped purposefully.
Is the company going to be required to use local labor?
Required in what sense, Your Honor?
Does the company have any commitment to use local labor?
Commitment to who, Your Honor? To PSC or the county?
Does the company have any intention of using?
We do have all the intention, Your Honor,
Okay.
if that's the question. We have absolutely all. I want county to love me. Let's just say it in a plain answer, because I comply with everything they said, everything on the AC process. I have no idea why this is happening to this project. So
Okay. I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about local labor.
because local labor hiring will make them happy, I assume. I presumably that's one reason. If it's available, commercially available, yes.
You understand that part of your application states that the value of the project to the county and to Maryland it depends on the use of local labor, correct?
Absolutely. We are beyond committed for that. We want to use as much
Committed to
available.
who?
To ourselves.
Okay.
We want to create further economic activity with the county residents and community. In fact, I want UMES to be involved and have a course out of it. I want them to learn. I want kids to learn these things and make a career out of themselves for this project. I'm fully committed to ourselves for that.
Okay, thank you. Does any party other than the applicant have any questions for this witness based on my questions? Okay. Do you have any questions for your witness?
I don't, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony this morning. You can be excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. As our next and final witness, I will call Mr. Timothy Metzner.
Okay, as Mr. Metzner is coming up, I've been notified that there was a black Samsung phone that was left downstairs on 16 in the waiting area. So you might want to check your pockets, because if you were down on 16 before you got the message to come up here. If you have lost it, it's at the reception area on 16. Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you state your first and last name and spell it for the court reporter, please?
Timothy Metzner, first name Timothy, last name Metzner.
Your witness, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Metzner, can you please provide your business address?
601 East Main Street, Suite 100, Salisbury, Maryland, 21804.
And what is your business and title?
I'm a registered landscape architect and associate with Davis Bone and Friedel.
Thank you. Do you have before you in that binder a document entitled The Direct Testimony of Timothy M. Metzner, PLA LEED APND, consisting of 20 pages, dated March 29th, 2023?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, I would request to mark that as applicant exhibit 16.
Applicant 16 is marked.
Thank you. Mr. Messner, was this document prepared by you or under your supervision and control?
Yes.
Have you reviewed PPRP's proposed conditions related to landscape screening in this case?
Yes.
And do you have anything to add to your testimony based off of those conditions?
No.
Other than this additional, well, if we're to ask you these same questions today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And is your testimony true and correct to the best of your ability?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Messner. With that, request to move applicant exhibit 16 into evidence.
Any objection to applicant exhibit 16? Applicant 16 is admitted.
Thank you. I have no further questions, and the witness is available for cross-examination.
PPRP?
No questions, Your Honor.
The county?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Messner, did you, in your preparation for this testimony, did you look at the Somerset County zoning ordinance? Or did you, well,
Yes.
okay. And does your testimony here and your recommendations comply with the zoning ordinance?
So the plan was originally prepared for a 20-foot wide. However, based on the PPRD conditions, that was expanded to meet the code, and they have agreed to meet those conditions
For the current Somerset County zoning?
of
Ordinance.
the 30-foot wide, I believe, and then the
No,
multiple rows.
The 75.
No, okay, it does not meet the 75-foot landscape.
Okay. All right, so, but did you take that into account when you did your presentation or when you did your testimony?
So what we took into account was the plant species, the plant selection, both native and hardy to the area, that also meet the visual buffer per the requirements of the 8 feet, minimum 8 foot at 5 year. So the plant species and all that were taken into account. Plant types, the variety, the multiple levels of plantings to provide that visual buffers.
Yes.
Those all were taken into account for this design to provide that required screening.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
OPC?
No questions.
Staff?
No questions, Your Honor.
Good afternoon. So your testimony doesn't have pages, but if you could kind of flip 2 pages. I'm looking at, mine's 2-sided. I'm looking at a page on the right side, and the first question on the page is, what is your opinion of the accuracy of this methodology? So if you could find that page first, and then I'll direct you to where I'm looking on the page.
What is my opinion of the accuracy of the methodology? Okay.
So I'm looking at the answer to the second question on that page.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, what is the height of the vegetative buffer included in the visual renderings? Now, I get that this is not, that this would be updated based on PPRP's conditions, correct?
Correct.
Okay, but I'm trying to figure out, so you've got some plants that would be planted at a 3 to 4 foot height, and then you've got some plants that would be planted at a 2 to 3 foot height, but then in 5 years, you're saying there would be an additional 5 to 8 feet and an additional 4 to 5 feet of width. So I could read that to say the shortest one would be 2 at planting and get an additional 5 feet. It'd be 7 foot total. But I'm not familiar with the different types of plants. So can you kind of give me a more detailed description of how that would look?
Absolutely. So what we're proposing are evergreen trees that would be planted at the per the direct testimony that we were specifying to be planted at 3 to 4 foot height. The shrubbery was proposed to be planted at the 2 to 3 foot height, and then Also, the plant selection here was done so that these plants are fast growing, and once the root systems are established, they grow at several of the plants grow at a rate of 2 to 3 foot per year, and therefore that's what that when we were talking about the 5-year growth rendering shows 5 to 8 feet on height on average is what the elevation of those plants would be at the 5-year
Okay.
mark.
So the inkberry and southern bayberry plants are the shrubs that would be in the shrub like row.
Correct.
And the other ones are trees that would be in the back rows. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So how tall do the shrubs get?
So inkberry, are you talking about, say, in 5 years or at maturity?
Give me both, please.
Okay. At 5, those will grow between between 6 to 1.5 feet tall, or I mean a year, the inkberries, and then also the bayberry. So those grow those have a pretty rapid growth.
So at maturity, they would be
They're about between 6 to 8 feet tall
okay.
themselves, the shrubs.
And then the tree varieties that are here
Mhm.
at maturity, what would be their height?
They get typically between 20 and 40 feet tall.
Okay. Now, since your testimony, PPRP has new conditions, and you said you were familiar with those, correct?
That's correct.
So they require 6 foot at planting.
Mhm.
Does that mean that these same species would be used, but they would just be more mature at planting, or would it be an entire new plan?
So it would be a new plan because those shrubs would be extremely difficult to find at that height. Those probably, we would probably specify 4 to 5 feet around that time frame, or around that height. The 6 feet is for geared toward the trees selected there.
So with PPRP's requirement, does that rule out shrubs and leave us just with trees?
Well, I think that would need to be a requirement for the tree height, and then our plan could supplement the shrubs to have the larger shrubs, but the shrubs would not be able to be met at that 6 foot height.
So the requirement is a 30-foot landscape buffer.
Mhm.
It'll effectively screen views of the solar facility to a minimum of 6 feet above ground level at planting and fully screened after 5 years. And then later it says the buffer must include at least 3 distinct rows of evergreen trees or shrubs planted at least 10 feet apart from the center.
So-
Are you going to be in charge of the final landscape plan that's provided to us and to the parties?
Yes.
So looking at PPRP's Condition 27 landscape buffer,
Mhm.
what can we expect to see based on these new requirements?
So they would be, the trees would be a minimum of the 6 foot tall at planting from ground, a 30-foot wide landscape buffer, planted at least the 10 feet apart, 3 distinct rows, and then of vegetation, and then shrubbery planted, and that's where we would be willing to work with the commission, the county, as far as determine. My recommendation would be the 4 foot height, and the purpose of that is when you plant larger, more mature plants, it takes longer for them to get established. The root system takes a lot more care, a lot more maintenance. The survivability actually decreases the more mature that is. So by planting at that, if the shrubberies are the 4 foot, the trees are at the 6 foot. Those are tall enough to provide the instant visual buffer, from 6 foot height, and the screening, at multiple levels. And in doing so, that also increases survivability because it does allow the root systems to establish. So my recommendation would be to, the 4 foot shrubs, 6 foot trees, and then with a 30 foot landscape buffer in the 10 foot space.
Have you also been hired to help with the landscape maintenance agreement?
I have not.
Okay. The buffer that you've just described, what type of maintenance will that need for the first year, first 5 years?
So the typical for the first growing season, especially 2 weeks, within the 2 weeks of planting, and it depends. The recommended planting times are in the spring and in the fall. If the plants are installed at around those time frames, typically it will watering needs to occur every 2 to 3 days within the first 2 weeks of planting, and then weekly within the first growing season following. Once it's established, so they would have to continue to water in that next growing season, and then
How long is a growing season?
essentially just say the calendar year.
Okay.
And then beyond that, the roots have established, and these plants were selected because they're hardy for the area. They're all but one of them are native, so they're acclimated to the climate, to the soils. So these, under typical growing conditions, will become established and wouldn't need further assistance on water beyond that first year, typically because of their native.
What other things beyond water would be needed to maintain?
If there's any pest.
Okay. And so in your testimony on that page that we looked at, and in what you're describing for the new landscape buffer plan that would be submitted based on PPRP's conditions, we're talking about the same species of plants for both?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Does any party have any questions based on mine? Company, do you have any?
I have a few follow-up questions.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mester, you've reviewed, obviously, your testimony and the PPRP condition with respect to landscaping, correct?
Yes.
In your opinion, what does PPRP's condition do as it compares to the original proposal from your testimony?
So from the original testimony, the 20-foot wide, the plants, that design was robust. It was dense, and it was with that 20-foot wide. The 30-foot and the heights specified. The 30-foot wide and the taller, bigger trees and shrubs actually it makes it even more robust. So it goes definitely above and beyond what the goal is of the 5, being 8 foot tall at 5 years. The new plan per the PPRD recommendations gives a more dense, heavily landscaped because it'll fill in quicker.
And with respect to the 50% proposed setback, how does the revised screening requirement enhance or address concerns with respect to that setback?
So the plants, like I said, in typical growing conditions, the height of these plants, the trees, they're very vigorous, fast-growing plants. We're going to be looking at trees, anywhere between the 10 to 15 foot tall range in 5 years, and that provides a pretty distinct buffer. Definitely from from all the vehicular traffic along the roadway out front. The residential areas, this 15 feet does provide a screening buffer from most, if not all, the residential neighboring properties as well. So this actually will, that 30-foot wide, as I stated, allows the root systems to not compete with each other and actually provides a better growing condition. So it will provide a more robust, like I said, taller planting. So the visual screening will help for the whole entire farm, for the solar farm.
Okay, and just one final question. You had a discussion with the judge about the bushes and shrubs that will be planted along with the trees. Are you able to maybe describe, as a landscape architect, what's the purpose of bushes, shrubs in relation to trees when creating a full landscape buffer?
Sure. So variation in height. So what you want to do is you want to block visually. A lot of times trees. There are some deciduous trees in here as well, and so you got a really tall buffer, but then you got visually you can see under the trees that the shrubs, the different height variation provides that screening at all levels. And also the plants selected as well provide are several of them are pollinator species, which actually attract birds, bees, and butterflies, and just to name a few species. So that they have multiple uses, not just visually, but aesthetically and also functionally.
And what's the effect of using multiple species as opposed to a single species for the entire screen, something like that?
Diversity is key for survivability. If you get a pest, if you're planting one row of evergreen trees along the whole entire frontage, a pest comes in, bad year, and can wipe out bagworms. It can wipe out. By having diversity, it provides the opportunity for the other trees to survive.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Applicant rests.
We rest our case. Thank you.
PPRP.
Your Honor, before we start, can I ask for a brief recess?
That sounds great. The video feed's going to stay on just because we have technical issues with getting it back on. But yeah, let's break for 10 minutes. It's 1:58, so 2:10. No worries. No worries. I don't know if you noticed, I revised, so I'm just going to allow it for the rest of the hearing. You doing okay, Connie? Oh, okay, that's fine. It was just asking for a break. Yeah, I'll make sure it's on. Thank you. we can go back on the record. Yes. I would prefer to do what you would prefer since they're your witnesses, so it's your call. If you want them together, I'm just going to grab a chair from over there. Yeah.
I've also got a quick question, Your Honor.
I love quick questions.
We have several witnesses that travel from the Eastern Shore. Are they excused?
Yes,
Or?
the
Thank
witnesses
you.
can be excused.
Thank you.
Yes, as soon as a witness is done testifying, they can be excused. Thank you. I appreciate the chair help. All right, PPRP, do you want to call your first witness?
Before we do that, Your Honor, I would like to try enter into the record the other documents, which include the project assessment report and the conditions in the secretarial letter.
That sounds great.
Okay. The first document, Your Honor, is the secretarial letter dated and filed on June 30th, 2023. If we could have that marked as PPRP Exhibit 1.
Yes, PPRP Exhibit 1 is marked.
And the second is MEA, I apologize. As PPRP Exhibit 2, if we could have marked the recommended initial conditions filed on June 30th, 2023.
Are you gonna enter in both the license conditions filed in
Yes, Your Honor.
June and then also the ones filed in October?
And the red line version, yes.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor, that was my plan, if that's
Okay.
what you would.
The June, what is the date?
June 30th.
Okay, the June 30th license conditions are marked as PPRP Exhibit 2.
And as PPRP Exhibit 3, the revised recommended conditions of PPRP also actually filed on October 6th, 2023.
PPRP Exhibit 3 is the revised conditions filed on October 6th.
And as PPRP 3A, the revised redlined conditions, recommended conditions, also filed on October 6th.
3A is marked.
And then, Your Honor, as PPRP Exhibit 4, the project assessment report consisting of 84 pages and 4 appendices.
The PAR is marked as PPRP Exhibit 4.
And at this time, Your Honor, I would ask that all of these be entered into the record.
Any objection to PPRP Exhibits 1, 2, 3, 3A, and 4? No objections. PPRP Exhibits 1, 2, 3, 3A, and 4 are admitted.
Okay, Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to call my first witness, who is Christopher Adlin.
Just a reminder to everyone to speak into the mics. Mr. Adlin, can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, can you please state your name and spell it for the court reporter?
Yes, my name is Christopher Adlin. First name CHRISTOPHER. Last name AADLAND.
Your witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. Adlin. Could you please state your business address?
Yes, it's 580 Taylor Avenue, Annapolis, Maryland, 21401 in the TOS State Office Complex.
And could you please state who your employer is and what your title is?
Yes, I'm a power plant site assessor with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources Power Plant Research Program.
Okay, before you, do you have a document entitled The Direct Testimony of Christopher A. Adlin?
Yes, I do.
Was this document prepared by you or under your direct control or supervision?
Yes.
And do you have any corrections at this time?
No.
If I ask you the same questions at this time, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Is this testimony true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
And at this time, do you adopt this exhibit as your direct testimony?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would move that the direct testimony of Christopher Adlin be moved into the record as PPRP Exhibit 6. Exhibit 5. Exhibit 5.
Any objection to PPRP Exhibit 5? Okay, Mr. Adlin's direct is admitted.
Mr. Adlin, do you have another document in front of you entitled The Supplemental Testimony of Christopher A. Adlin?
Yes.
And was this document prepared by you or under your direct control or supervision?
Yes.
And do you have any corrections at this time?
No.
If I ask you the same questions, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And is this testimony the true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
And at this time, do you adopt this testimony as your supplemental testimony?
Yes.
At this time, Your Honor, I would ask that this document be marked as PPRP Exhibit 6
It's marked.
and would request that it be moved into the record.
Any objection? So I'm assuming that also means there's no objection to supplemental testimony, even though it was not in the procedural schedule. Is that correct?
No objection, Your Honor.
PPRP Exhibit 6 is admitted.
Okay, Your Honor, at this time, the witness is available for cross-examination.
County,
No questions, Your Honor.
OPC,
No questions, Your Honor.
staff,
No questions, Your Honor.
company.
I have no questions.
Mr. Adlin, so you're the project manager, so I can ask questions about the entire project to you, and you'll just tell me, won't you, if it should go to Mr. or Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Okay. Have you read the public comments filed in this case
Yes,
with the Public Service Commission, the written ones?
I have.
Okay, so it seems like there might be some discrepancy with the closest fire companies.
Mm-hmm.
Have you verified that information that was in that public comment?
No, to my knowledge, no.
Okay. So if Fruitland Fire Company is 4 miles closer and one of the closest fire companies, that one should also be included in developing emergency plans?
I would say yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with all of the conditions?
Yes.
Okay. Where in the conditions, did you also hear the testimony at the public? Thank you, Connie. Did you also hear the testimony at the public hearings, the live public hearings?
Yes.
Okay. They described drainage ditches that were so overgrown with weeds that they became like trees growing out of the drainage ditches.
Yes.
So what's the plan with regards to those?
My understanding is that the applicant plans on clearing those trees out of those ditches, and so they don't provide a blockage for drainage.
Okay, and then what's the purpose of those ditches at that point?
It's just to drain the property, and it connects into the tax ditch on the east side of the property. It's just properly drain the property.
Okay, and so there's a couple of PPRP conditions that are affected by those drainage ditches, correct?
Mhm.
You want to point me to the numbers of those?
Let's see. In the revised conditions, number 21D, there's talk about Rosehip provide a minimum 35-foot vegetated setback for the tax ditch. And in 21B, there's a provision there that says culverts and ditches maintained on site where Rosehip shall be inspected annually for structural damage and erosion at the outfall point. Let's see if there's any other specifically address the ditches. I believe those are the only ones that directly address the ditch.
Okay.
And then,
PPRP condition, wait, did the condition numbers change? The numbers are still the same, correct, from the original filing? It was just the language that changed? I think I know the answer to that question.
yeah, I'm not sure.
PPRP condition 12 is grading and stormwater management.
Right. Mhm.
Does that require that the land be leveled so that there's no like puddling water underneath of the panels?
Yeah, that should be part of the stormwater management plan. Yeah, that there won't, that any of the low areas would be, right now there's a wetland area that will be filled and leveled. So there shouldn't be any standing water.
Okay.
Yeah.
So PPRP has two conditions, 4 and 10, that are for access and for reporting.
Mm-hmm.
What, if anything, do the various agencies represented in the secretarial letter, what, if anything, do they do with regards to the site after the CPCN is approved and really, honestly, after it's built?
I think that's a good question. I think that's where there's, as far as I know, there's not a lot of follow-up from the agencies to after the fact. I think that would be up probably to the county to inspect those areas and call out any issues or discrepancies.
Okay. So now turning to PPRP condition 37, which is decommissioning. There's not a requirement that the panels be recycled because it's an evolving technology, an evolving like business. But what did PPRP envision with regarding the recycling portion of that condition?
Well, I think hopefully they could be reutilized in a different fashion, either reused or at the time that these would be decommissioned, there would be better technology for properly recycling these products. Right now, they are difficult to recycle.
I believe there's only one place in the United States that does recycle.
Right. A lot of it ends up in landfill currently. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that a new condition? Do you know?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
If that's
Your Honor, if you would like, we could respond to that in a bench data request after.
That's okay. I was just curious.
And also with regard to the follow-up of other agencies, if you would like a bench data request on that as well.
That would be great, actually. I
Okay.
would appreciate that.
All right.
We'll call that bench data request 1.
Okay.
So, a little worried about the roads condition.
mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of varying testimony and public comment on the roads. Do you have, are you able to, like, solve that factual dilemma for me?
On damage to the roads or during construction?
Yeah,
or
during
access?
construction, I mean, has, as a part of the PAR, do you know whether or not that the roads will allow for trucks to deliver these objects? And are you also aware of whether or not, with the additional chicken truck traffic, if this will be unduly burdensome on the residents?
Yeah, I believe because there is currently quite a bit of agricultural truck traffic going to and from the chicken farms next door, the chicken houses, it was assumed that the roads would be able to handle the additional construction traffic. But I'm not sure if we looked into whether or not that the roads could sustain the additional truck traffic or not.
Okay. But that's one of the things where it says in the conditions that they have to work with Somerset County
Right.
to make a plan for that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then any questions I have about the battery energy storage best practices, I should ask witness Porter?
Yes, I'd defer to our two
Okay.
expert witnesses.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Thank you very much. Does any party have any questions based on my questions? PPRP, do you have any redirect?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right,
You can
thank
be
you.
released. Next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, PPRP calls David Mister to the stand.
You raise your right hand, please. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Can you state your first and last name and spell them for the court reporter, please?
Sure. My name's David Mister, D-A-V-I-D, Mister, M-I-S-T-E-R.
Your witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. and Mr. Could you please tell us your business address?
Sure. My business address is 27722 Nanticoke Road, Salisbury, Maryland.
And who are you employed by, and what is your title?
I'm employed by the Maryland Department of Agriculture, and my title is Eastern Shore Regional Coordinator.
And who are you testing on behalf of today?
Testifying on behalf of the Tax Ditch Association, the Dividing Creek Tax Ditch Association.
And the Power Plant Research Program, is that
That's
not true?
correct.
Okay. And do you have before you a document entitled The Direct Testimony of David Mister?
I do.
And was this document prepared by you or under your direct control or supervision?
Yes, it was.
And do you have any corrections at this time to
I
that?
do not.
And if I asked you the same questions at this time, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Is this testimony a true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, it is.
And at this time, do you adopt this testimony as yours?
I do.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like the document entitled Direct Testimony of David Mister to be marked as PPRP Exhibit 7.
7. PPRP Exhibit 7 is marked.
And I would request that this be entered into the record.
Any objection? PPRP Exhibit 7 is admitted.
At this time, Your Honor, the witness is available for cross-examination.
Thank you. County?
No questions, Your Honor.
OPC?
No questions. Your Honor.
Staff?
No questions, Your Honor.
Company?
No questions.
So a 35-foot buffer is what's appropriate in this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you tell me why in plain English?
Yes, ma'am. So that allows for the ease of equipment, the large equipment used to maintain the tax ditch systems. The Board of Supervisors is responsible for that maintenance. They hire contractors that use a number of different types of equipment as specified in my testimony. And that 35-foot buffer will allow them to function without doing any damage. It reduces the risk greatly for any damage to the solar panels. There was concern by the Tax Ditch Association that if it were to remain at the 20-foot, once that permanent structure is there, that there was a possibility they could be damaged, as they did their maintenance activities.
Have you actually gone out to the site?
Not recently.
At some point you did?
I am familiar with the site, but I have not been there recently.
Did you see the condition of the the ditches when you went?
The last time I was there, yes.
If the tax ditches are cleaned out as a part of this project, would it be more or less beneficial to the residents?
That's a good question, Your Honor. Having not been there recently, I don't know the current state, and if there's
Compared to where it was when you saw it?
Again, I can't answer that question.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Does any party have any questions based on my questions? Do you have any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you for your testimony this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You can be released. And you can call your next witness.
Your Honor, at this time I would call Kevin Porter to the stand. And Your Honor, what I plan on doing is go ahead and talking to Mr. Porter regarding his testimony except for the battery storage, and then bring up Mr. Keith to talk about the battery storage together, if that's
Sure.
suitable. Okay, thank you.
Or if you'd like, Mr. Keith can come up now and sit and wait, and we can do it all at one time. It's up to
Okay,
you.
let's do that.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you both to raise your right hands. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Porter, do you want to state your first and last name and spell it for the court reporter?
Yes. Kevin Porter, Kevin for my first name, Porter for my last name.
And Mr. Keith?
Brian Keith, BrianKeith.
Thank you both for your excellent maneuvering of the microphone. I'm sorry about this situation. Your witness.
Mr. Porter, could you please tell us your business address?
Yes, 10480 Little Patuxent Parkway, Suite 300, Columbia, Maryland 21044.
And could you tell us who you're employed by and your title?
Yes, Exeter Associates, EXETER Associates. My title is Vice President.
And on whose behalf are you testifying today?
I'm testifying on behalf of the Power Plant Research Program.
And do you have before you a document entitled The Direct Testimony of Kevin L. Porter?
Yes, I do.
And was this document prepared by you or under your direct control or supervision?
Yes.
And do you have any corrections to it at this time?
I do not.
And if I asked you the same questions today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And is this testimony true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask that the direct testimony of Kevin Porter be marked as PPRP Exhibit 8.
Exhibit 8 is marked.
And I would request that it be entered into the record.
Any objection? PPRP Exhibit 8 is admitted.
Okay. Mr. Keith,
Yes.
do you have before you a document entitled The Direct Testimony of Brian Keith?
I do.
And I apologize. I got a little ahead of myself. Could you please state your business address?
My business address is 200 Charles Ewing Boulevard, Suite 160, Ewing, New Jersey, 08218.
And could you please tell us who you're employed by and your title?
I am employed by Environmental Resources Management, and I'm a principal consultant.
And on whose behalf are you testifying today?
on the power plant research program.
Okay, and do you have a document before you entitled Direct Testimony of Brian Keith, dated October 6th, 2023?
I do.
And was this document prepared by you or under your direct control or supervision?
Yes,
And do you have any corrections to it at this time?
I do not.
And if I asked you the same questions at this time, would your answers be the same?
Yes,
And is this testimony true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
yes,
And do you adopt this testimony as your testimony at this time?
I do.
At this time, Your Honor, I would ask that this exhibit be marked as PPRP Exhibit 8, 9.
And this is the supplemental direct. This was filed as, it's titled direct, but it was filed as supplemental direct.
Yes, Your Honor, thank
Okay,
you.
yeah.
That is an inadvertent mistake.
That's fine. Mr. Keith's testimony, Mr. Keith just has the one testimony.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Keith's testimony is marked as PPRP Exhibit 9.
And thank you, Your Honor. And at this time, I would like to ask that it be entered into the record.
Any objection? PPRP Exhibit 9 is admitted.
At this time, the witnesses are available for cross-examination.
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your Honor.
No questions.
So this first question, I don't know if how often you come before the commission, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer the question. There's a proposed PPRP condition that states that if the company wants battery storage, since it's not included now, they have to come back before the commission. Is PPRP's, and you're both witnesses for PPRP, so is PPRP's position that the option for a battery should be considered now and then more specifically at a later date, or is PPRP's position that it's not a part of the project now, that there's a lot of testimony about it and we've considered it, but it's not being approved at all now and only at a later date?
I interpret that to be the latter.
Okay. That being said, is the depth of the proceeding that the commission should undergo to consider an addendum to the CPCN allowing for battery storage, would that be the same depth of proceeding and depth of testimony that was received in this proceeding, or is it something that would be on a smaller scale that could be handled at like an administrative meeting or at
I don't really know, truthfully. I'm thinking it's more the former, the administrative, not administrative proceeding, but a proceeding like this.
Your Honor, if you would like, I could take that
Sure.
on as a bench data request too.
Sure.
Okay.
That'd be great. That's bench data request too. I'd like to know specifically what PPRP would recommend be considered. I mean, I know I see in the condition you've added what should be a starting point for what the data the company should give us. But, I think there should be some direction to the commission as to what's intended for the review of that.
Yes, Your
And
Honor.
I don't know if staff or OPC wants to take a stab at that either.
Your Honor, I think staff would like to take a stab at that, so
Okay.
we will answer that data request as well.
Okay, thank you.
And Your Honor, we can work together too if
Yeah,
we need to.
however you want to get me the data, but if you want to have a say in that, then try to participate in that.
We will work with both OPC and staff.
Okay, thank you. This sighting is a rural sighting with volunteer fire departments. Where should battery storage be? I mean, it's a new industry, so where should it be? Should it be in a place like this where it's rural and there's not, like a more established, it's a volunteer fire companies that would be responding? Is it appropriate for this area?
Whether it's a volunteer or paid firefighting organization, they can be trained to provide assistance as needed. The best way to approach it is to approach it through engineering controls ahead of time, the proper firefighting media, the proper water storage on the site, and the proper planning, doing the planning with the various fire departments that would respond. It is common to have solar farms and wind farms in rural areas.
You heard that we're at the point where we're at the evidentiary hearing for this, and we're not even sure who the fire companies are that would be responding. Does that give you any concern?
I would say all four, because it has to be based on risk and escalation. So since they are volunteer fire departments, have them all be a part of it.
Okay. Because there's more of a danger with battery storage than there is with, a simple PV arrays. This is a relatively small project that's being proposed. Is battery storage in a small project like that advisable?
Absolutely. It can be anywhere from a backup generator, battery storage, all the way up to gigabytes. So it is scalable and it is safe.
And were I considering an addendum to the CPCN issued in this case, would I have everything I need to consider whether or not battery storage should be added based on what's in PPRP's revised condition?
I believe so.
Okay. Give me just a moment. Let me see if I had any other questions. I don't have any further questions. I'm going to see if anybody else is, but thank you both for your time. Any other party have questions based on mine?
I just have a couple, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Mr. Keith, you're not aware of this, I'm sure, but the volunteer fire departments have a limited number of tankers and a limited number of volume of gallons that they could actually bring to the site. Do you have any idea how much water they would need? Because there's no fire hydrants out there, there's no wells out there. They have to bring everything.
So I would recommend referring to the NFPA. They have formulas for that type of situation that base it on the construction of the housing for the units, the risk of the batteries, as well as a safety factor that they would add, and that water would be stored on property.
So it would be the responsibility of the applicant to store water on the property?
It should be a joint decision between the applicant and the authority having jurisdiction.
All right. That's all I had.
And the tanker trucks do include in that formula.
Sure.
Anyone else have any questions? Ms. McLemore, do you have any questions?
I just have a couple of redirect, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Okay, if both of you would turn to the revised condition 7.
Excuse me.
Just let me know when you have it in front of you. Okay, you're both familiar with this document, correct? Could you, you see there at the end, the documentation submitted to the PSC at the time that they come in with an addendum for the battery storage. It shall address the following elements at a minimum. Is that not true? Do you, why did PPRP, if you know, why did PPRP include the words at a minimum?
This was discussed about the requirements of NFPA 855, which is adopted by reference by a newer edition of the fire code. The current fire code in Maryland does not require 855 compliance, but the next edition does. And this would address all the conditions that would likely be in effect when the project goes forward, considering that Maryland is under review for the adoption of the more current fire code.
And is the battery energy storage, is that market and that technology, is it currently changing pretty often?
The technology changes constantly. The firefighting media that is proposed for this project may be obsolete in 3 years. There's currently under development firefighting media that reduces the water usage by 50%. There's also encapsulating firefighting media that acts as a cover that as soon as it hits the fire, it'll create a shell and then deny oxygen and allow it to cool. There's new technologies on fire observance. Instead of waiting for heat to rise to show that there's a fire in place, you're doing IR on individual battery cells. All this will combine to reduce your risk significantly.
So based on the changes that occur in the future, do you believe that this condition will allow the commission to include things that may be coming in the future for assuring fire safety for batteries?
I believe so, yes.
All right, thank you. That is all, Your Honor.
Thank you both for your appearances this morning. I appreciate it. You can be released. PPRP?
Those are all my witnesses, Your Honor.
PPRP rests. County? OPC? Normally, at this point, since you don't have any witnesses, I would ask counsel what your position is on the matter, but we have dates already set out for briefs and reply briefs. So if you choose to submit a brief or a reply brief, that's great. If not, at the bare minimum, I would ask that you file a letter in lieu that states your position. Staff?
Thank you, Your Honor. Staff calls Latingia Bunch to the stand.
You raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Can you state your first and last name and spell it for the court reporter, please?
Latangia Bunch, Lytangia Bunch.
Your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Bunch, please state your business address for the record
6 St. Paul Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202.
and the organization you work for
Public Service Commission,
and your current title.
Regulatory Engineer.
Thank you. Do you have before you a document titled The Direct Testimony and Exhibits of Latangia Bunch, filed on June 30th, 2023, comprised of 15 narrative pages and 2 separate exhibits?
Yes.
Did you produce this document or oversee its production?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections to make to this document?
No.
If you were asked these same questions today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes.
Is your testimony true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
And do you accept this testimony as your testimony here this afternoon?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, I would request that this document be marked for identification as Staff Exhibit 1 and entered into the record.
Any objection? Staff Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you. This witness is available for cross-examination.
Let's just go backwards. OPC?
No cross.
County? PPRP? Company?
No cross.
I don't want to let you go without asking any questions. Do you agree? Do you agree with PPRP's conditions?
Yes, I do.
Thank you for your testimony. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Staff?
That concludes staff's case, Your Honor.
Okay. Everyone has rested. There are a couple of outstanding bench data requests. There's no time limit on that, just whenever you can get it done. We have initial briefs due Friday, October 20th, and reply briefs due Monday, October 30th. You don't have to file both, but if you don't file one, you need to file a letter in lieu stating your position.
Just on behalf of the county commissioners for Somerset County, they oppose the solar farm, and I will be filing a brief and a reply brief.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else we need to take up this morning? Okay.
One of our consultants has been working with us on CPCNs for 35 years, and this is her last case. So I just wanted to say thank you on the record to Diane Mountain.
Thank you very much for all of your help over the years. And good luck with your retirement or with your future endeavors. All right, we can go off the record. Thank you, everyone. It was great this morning. Thank you for your congeniality.
Thank you.